Um, I have a difficult task today to speak about healing, and actually it wasn't my topic. I would never choose healing for the Veda because there is no healing as such. Ayurveda, yes, it is healing, about healing, but then this challenge created some kind of question, what is really healing and what is to be healed in the Vedic sense. It seems that we are all not well here from the Vedic perspective. We are all on the way to be healed, to be taken out of darkness into the light. And as you remember in my presentation, there were two creations. One was of the eternal night, which we also represent, and the other was the plunge of the spirit into that night, which we also represent. So we carry within ourselves two different ways of existence. One is fully conscious being which is not in need of healing, and there is other being which needs to be healed. The healing is seen in the Veda as immortality. Immortality not of our soul, because it doesn't need that immortality, it is already immortal, but the immortality of the being which is mortal. It is a constant battle on the spiritual path. Abhisyama pritsutir martiyanam, says Rishi. May we withstand the oppression of the mortals. Just think about the phrase. May we withhold the pressure of the mortals. What is mortality? Mortality is our sick state of being. We are not yet healthy. That's why we are mortal. But this view is you can find only in the Veda. Ayurveda will not even subscribe for this. There was a shift of paradigm. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to... little less. Can you put little less? Yeah. Didn't have enough time to present this shift of paradigms. It would be very useful because when we shift from one language to another, there's something happening. Yes? We can do it, but we always question in our mind, what did we really do now? Yeah? What has happened? We were rational and now we are mythological. Is it legal? Is it all right to be mythological when we are rational beings and have to be scientific and so on and so forth? That had to be clarified before I really could go into the material of Rig Veda. Unfortunately, I didn't do that, but I presume that we all, so to say, subscribe for this exercise. And maybe later when I have time, more time, I will show you the shift of paradigms and why it is, in my view and Sri Aurobindo's view, is legal to, to incorporate different ways of thinking and being and seeing the world into one transparent way of being. It was always my question. I never could understand why rational beings sometimes become so irrational. They go to the church and they put, this incense stakes for my son, for my daughter, though they are scientists. Or they take this in the morning and they go to IIT somewhere. And so how come that these different paradigms coexist within one being? Yes? We like fairy tales and stories, and at the same time we are very rational. So it seems we address different needs of our being. There is a mental need of a mental structure, that's what we are rational about, and there is other need which is deeper in us. so to say, of the mythical structure of our soul, of our myth of the existence. We want to know about our origins. We want to know where we are coming from. And this rational mind cannot give you. It doesn't have the means, the tools, the knowledge. And then there is even deeper magic structure of the oneness of nature, and even deeper archaic structure which upholds everything in oneness. There is a book by John Gebser which is called The Ever-Present Origin, and he implies that this archaic structure of oneness of the outer and inner being is implied through all the structures. That's why they can really deviate, so to say, from it. But they represent it. It's ever-present structure of oneness of the inner and outer. And that would be, in our topic of healing, the ultimate healing. If the inner can be completely reflected in the outer, and the outer will be absolutely the same as inner, then there will be no question of healing anymore. But because of this difference between the inner being and the outer existence, between our soul, which is immortal and doesn't need any healing, and our bodies, physical, vital and mental bodies, which are here not fully conscious of what is happening. They are on the way to discover something. They are higher beings also. They are truer existence with the help of this involved soul. Then they are in need of constant healing. Does it make sense? Yes, swastika. Yeah, it's the easiest way to explain well-being, yes? Staying in oneself, being oneself. But what it implies, it depends what you are yourself, yes? Our idea of healing is very different from the Vedic, because we want to heal this imperfect being and to fix it to a certain extent, to exist or to function. We want to fix this animal man to live animal life in a healthy fashion. And from the Vedic point of view, it's impossible, because it is on the way. It's an evolutionary being, it's a transitional being which will always encounter struggle and change. And if you step on the spiritual path, then it is even worse than being normal. If you want to live animal life, so half animal, half human life, it is okay. One can be to a certain extent healthy and, so to say, in some period of time live a healthy life and die in his or her own way. But if you want to speed up the evolutionary process, then something happens and you open up to the forces which resist. And these forces create a real mess in your life, in your vital, mental and physical being. And we know this from Sri Aurobindo, and the mother Sri Aurobindo says, I have 1001 wound within me. You do not know what I am going through, he says in the letters. His life was a battlefield, constant battle, with all these titanic forces, sons of darkness, and so on and so forth, who resist the change. What Mother went through, we cannot even discuss it. Those few who were here at the end of her life, they know what she went through, what kind of battles. That's why Sri Aurobindo says, I would not recommend this path to anyone. It is too difficult. Only for those who are called upon, who feel the call and cannot live otherwise. So healing is a big question, whether we want to become... But then, Once you have this resistance of anti-divine forces, you have also divine forces to assist you and to heal you, to heal your 1001 wounds. They will be there for you. So you enlarge the scope, so to say. When you go down into the darkness, you also go high into the light. And the higher you go, the deeper you dive. And this is the dynamism of this integral yoga. It can't be that you go only into the light and stay there. It will not happen, because our purpose is different. Our purpose is to bring that light into the darkness and to heal the darkness. I made some notes, but I'm never following notes somehow. So man was seen as a field, as a battlefield. Himself, his life, his body was the universe in which all these forces, armies, clashed. Armies of darkness and light. It is within him that all this battle takes place. It is within him that this darkness will be healed by the light. That's why he carries all the wounds, all the diseases. And
so this is a really interesting image. And I think maybe in the Western world, the Judeo-Christian kind of tradition, there would be two armies, one light, one dark. And I'm wondering, it sounds like though you use the word plural, it makes me think that it's to reduce it to just God versus the devil or Satan is oversimplistic from this perspective. It's much more kind of rich and nuanced, and the forces of each are more complicated.
Yes, yes. They have different functions, different names. They do different things. They don't do the same thing. God comes and does everything, and they will resist everything. It's not like that. They're all named. They are psychological faculties, so to say, universal psychological faculties, which do different things. And there is the whole knowledge of it, which we never touched, we never looked into it. It's too complex and too far away, too remote from us in language also. And we think already rationally, unfortunately, only rationally. Unfortunately, rational thinking has one defect, or it insists on its own way, and so to say, distrusts all other ways of thinking or perceiving. It is the only structure, mental structure or rational structure, which is so severe with other structures. So, in that sense, we are trapped by our mind and our way of thinking. We want to have a rational picture. And we are not only rational beings. There are more layers in us, more things which we are consist of. And even fundamentally, they are much more important for our existence than our surface rational being. I don't want to make you irrational. I want to say that rationality is very necessary. It does something important to our inner being. It redirects our, so to say, past-oriented mythical structure, or origin-oriented mythical structure, which is always looking into the past towards the future. And that's why it is so needed. It redirects all our search for the origin towards the future. So instead of looking back, where we have to go away from this manifestation where we are trapped, so to say, we are looking now forward to the future to see this happen. So we are, instead of running away from nature, we are manifesting the spirit in nature. And that made me think that Vedic vision is integral and not archaic or magic or mythical, because there is always a future-oriented perspective towards manifesting the divine. You cannot find this perspective in the pure magic or mythical structures or texts. You will see that they are always past-oriented. They have nothing to do with the future. But the Rig Veda totally is oriented towards the future.
Could you give some examples of the gods, like just to elaborate on John's point? Because we
Yes.
don't talk about those at all in that sense.
Yeah, I'm afraid to go to the elaborations on the gods, because I can always give, but that will be so misleading. I was thinking about it. If I give you what Indra and Ashwins do, of course I will name them, but we will have we have a habit to think about these things as gods, as mythological figures. And if I read to you one hymn to Ashwins, you will see how mistaken we are about Ashwins, or to the sun, how wrongly we understand what it means by that sun. If you go deeper into any hymn, we will see how presumptuous we are about these figures, godheads. We created in ourselves a rational image of these things, and we do not know them from within, or from the perspective we should know them. And I noticed also that with dwelling on these images longer in time, on each hymn for several weeks sometimes, we dwell on the same hymn, we read, and then the vision comes up slowly, and you can see what it really represents. But not in a hasty reading, not with a rational mind, because their mind will make an order, and that order is not what it is all about. It would be very misleading. I'm sorry to speak so much about it, because it's not essential, but I'm just thinking about it aloud also. So, instead of going to name these separate gods, I will give you a picture how all of them relate in this oneness. So, the most essential, the most fundamental Godhead in the whole Rig Veda is Agni. Agni is the one who brings all the forces, divine forces, into manifestation. He represents the supreme here and calls upon them and brings them down. Actually, he sacrifices them here to the darkness. He sacrifices gods to the darkness. Literally, he does it. Literally, yes? Devan yajati. And it is interesting that Yaj has the regulation of accusative sense. It's just speaking to Anuradha now, and maybe because we translated he sacrifices to the gods, but it is a wrong translation in a way. He sacrifices the gods, and there is nothing wrong about it, because he brings those forces which are transcendental into this manifestation, and that is sacrificing. And that sacrifice calls from this darkness, also to say, as Mother says, gives the example how this darkness has to give itself to the light. Because light gave itself to the darkness unconditionally, totally. Then this darkness is learning, because it never knew how to do it, to give itself back to the light. It will make sense more to you when you will dwell on this and see how the whole data is arranged. So, the Agni. Agni is a representative of the universal powers of consciousness, who is reorienting them towards the individual formation. He brings all the universal forces and manifests in the individual frame, in the human being. Can you imagine that? That we are not only individuals, we are representatives of universal forces. And they all have place in us, and they all clash and struggle within us. We are not as separate beings who are living by themselves. We are representatives of the universal movement and manifestation. There are many ways to see man as an integral being. One of them is given in Purusha Sukta as Chaturvarnya. Purusha, who is of 4 different varnas, of the Brahmin, of Rajanya, Kshatriya, of Vaishya and Shudra, so to say, of man of knowledge, yes, the speech, the word, the man of power, hands, the man of enjoyment and exchange of riches, Vaishya, and the man of service, legs. We know these 4 varnas in India very well, but what happened in India, that people got fixed into a particular varna. And if you are a son of some scientist, you will be a scientist. And if you are a son of porter, you will be a porter and nothing else. And unfortunately, that is not completely true for the Vedic vision. So in the Vedic sense, we all have to become Chaturvarnya. We have to be, as Brahmins, as Sri Aurobindo says, we have to be Brahmins in the knowledge. And we have to be Kshatriyas in power. Can you imagine such a being who is Kshatriya in power and Brahmin in knowledge, and divine Vaishya in exchange of goods and enjoyment, and the Shudra in the service, the same being? Yes? I am not sure about one life, but I am sure that it is the very meaning of that what is to happen. And by the way, it is also confirmed, not directly but indirectly, in the Gita, where Arjuna asks, how do you see this happening? You are mixing now all the varnas, all the jatis, you are mixing. What will happen to all of us? How would we know who is who in this manifestation? Because in the conventional age, it happened that we were fixed. Our birth was fixed by ritual. So in Brahmin family, only Brahmin was called upon. So the soul of Brahmin was coming to be born there. In the Kshatriya, only Kshatriya was coming, because the whole ritualistic life was, so to say, indicating to the soul that it is that place where you have to go. Now, what will happen now, he asks, when you mix all the varnas? We would not know who is who by birth. And think about this. Sri Krishna says later, now everyone will recognize me or find me in his heart. Even Shudras, even women, he says. But I'm not here against feministic movement. I'm just wanting to say that time it was seen like this because women were not actively a part of the system. It was already deviation from the Vedic system. In the Vedas it was different. Women were part of the system of knowledge. But later it happened to be, in conventional age, it was fixed differently. So what happened is, just look at his answers. Now everyone individually will find me in his or her heart. There is no more system of distribution of knowledge, Varnik system, which has to be there to keep the order of things. Everyone is to become Chaturvarnya. There are clashes. Yes, the clashes are obvious. If you want to do business or you want to pursue some transcendental meditation, some people actually combine both. They sell meditation like hotcakes. But I'm joking. It's not an example of integrity. But eventually, if you think what would be the solution or ultimate well-being, is that Purusha, universal Purusha, which was Chaturvarnya, has to be embodied in the individual Purusha, who has to become Chaturvarnya. And Sri Aurobindo confirms this in the human cycle. I have quotations and the whole PowerPoint presentation on it, but I'm not going into it because it's only one way of looking at integrality.
So the universal Purusha has to
Universal Purusha is Chaturvarnya, of 4 Varnas. And that's the projection he makes into manifestation. We couldn't pursue that in a faster fashion and become Chaturvarnya immediately. That's why the whole evolution of all the species and all the Varnas had to take place in the way how it took place. But now, when we come to the subjective age, according to Sri Aurobindo, all these qualities have to be found within us. It's not enough to be only Brahmin and, to use somebody to wash your cloth. And you have to be able to do everything in a new fashion. And by the way, this presents the greatest challenge for India. I think this is the challenge, no any other. How to overcome this Varnik, belonging. Everybody feels, if I was imagining if people here, there are so many people, would just one day take all the garbage, one day cleaning India, it will be the cleanest place. There are so many people. But nobody can do it, not because of it is impossible, but because of Varnik belonging. I cannot touch it because it's not my business to do it. There is somebody else whose business it is.
That's really a cultural thing.
It's cultural, which is actually coming from the spiritual background. Once it was very powerful system, was true, but then through convention it became void of meaning. Now, as Krishna mixed Varnas already, in the family of Brahmins, Shudra can be born, and in the family of Shudras, Brahmin can be born. And what can you do about this? You cannot follow it anymore.
Talking about washing clothes, I mean, it's more attitude.
No, it's for you. Yes, for I understand. But in India, it is something more than attitude. It is like you have to keep pure your Varna, otherwise you may lose that belonging. And if you mix things, then you may be banished from the community. And that is very dangerous.
I have read somewhere that instead of the concept of individual, here we have the concept of individual. We are always scared of being divided. My good parts will go away if I do some business and if I do some, toiling, and the parts that the Sakti practices and Tamasic purity that are there will go away. So this was what social accept actually. This is our understanding that individual. I think in the holistic picture, the Purusha picture is taken. Somehow makes sense, but this is more beautiful. Purusha is all of us, then all the Varnas.
And all the Varnas are within us. We cannot, but we anyhow do it. But we choose something to do and prefer that action, and that preference may be also Varnik in us. Or maybe I'm more a man of knowledge or man of power, and then I prefer that particular action more, and I am succeeding in that and more useful for the society in that way. But it is not really the thing what is wanted. The thing was wanted in a different way. Please, Tanya.
When it worked, the system, how did it change, and when it worked, how did
Now, these four powers or four varnas, they represent the fullness of the divine being. Yeah? There is Maheshwari, Mahakali, Mahalakshmi and Mahasaraswati, four powers of the mother, which represent Sat, Chit, Ananda and Vijnana, all transcendental being. This is the projection of the different activities or different ways of looking at things or being, through knowledge, through power, through life, or I don't have to put it right, through enjoyment and through perfection. Now, perfection in skills, in ability and capacity to make things. If you think in this theoretical framework, you will see that all these capacities we need. It is not something that we need only one of them and others will do other things. And it is very difficult to build such society of these integral individuals, because society is always dividing. You are more efficient in a particular way here, you are more efficient as a scholar and you are more efficient as a worker, because you do this all the time. So you got the skill. We are selling skills. We are not developing ourselves. Mother envisioned our will to be that place where all the skills and all the activities will be educational, not for the sake of survival, but for the sake of educating oneself. Can you imagine such society? What kind of investment it can do into the human, so to say, resources, that we all will be developed and we will all do activities in a view of development of our consciousness and not in a view of survival. It's an image which was never developed. No society did this development ever. I didn't answer your question because I didn't even go into that question. I went in my way. Can you repeat your question?
So why was it divided if the who was to have, because everyone needs to do everything. So why was it divided? How could one assume that one's future, generation would still be good at only that, or just decide and assume that they would just, why should you separate?
Why it was divided and why it was assumed that we will come back to that oneness again of all these qualities. We are talking on varnas. Why they were divided, why Brahmins became Brahmins, and actually these were the qualities of the soul, inequalities, which were fixed by convention and became conventional. And that's how it was divided. Because there was no more vision, inner vision, strong enough to see who is who. I was giving once example here about Satyakama Jabala. The teacher, in spite of all outer things, could see that he was Brahmin. That is the inner vision of the teacher. That inner vision was lost. So Satyakama Jabala in conventional age would be judged as an outcast and not as a Brahmin. So the quality of the soul has to be seen again. Now we cannot see it today who is who. We can sense that this person is more of knowledge type and this person is more of power type, yes? We can feel it or see it. Or this is more Vaishya. In India, unfortunately, also everybody knows everybody by names and by family names, surnames. You just say in the name and we know who you are. Huh? It is gone.
Nowadays, just a family would be a Brahmin previously, but now my father was a businessman. That's gone. Things got mixed up. But it was at one time. But before that, she already had spoken in symbolic.
Yes, symbolic age, that vision was clear who is who, and there was no need of conventionalizing the varnas, because it was obvious. And by the way, we are looking down on these lower varnas, unfortunately, and it is not correct, because these are also divine varnas. The service and the skillfulness in works is the divine varna, and it has to be acquired by all of us.
Another good example, when people came to the ashram, they might have been either doctors or something, but she gave them tasks which had nothing, like something like dishwashing or as a job in the ashram. So this inner vision that you're saying was something that she...
Definitely. And it is in the human cycle. Sri Aurobindo explains directly about it. He says that we have to be of 4 varnas. And he says also that it is very difficult to be only Brahmin. It's nearly impossible. You have to do other things also. And you can't be only Shudra. It's also impossible. So this division, which was conventionalized, became a problem. Because in that symbolic age, it was flexible. It was seen as a need of the soul's expression, rather than a fixation of who you are in this time. So the division was necessary because these, so to say, qualities had to be worked out in time. We had to learn what they are, and then once we deviated from them, so to say, we can come back to them again. We could clearly see how they are worked out in time. I think so, at least.
One understanding is that normally, supposing I have a temperament of a Brahmin, in a sense I am knowledge oriented, but our life is comprised of all the different aspects. Sometimes we need to be in a governing position, sometimes we need to be enjoyment in our lives, in everybody's ordinary lives. But because we tend to be dominated by one tendency, we will do all the other activities with that tendency.
Right.
So what is required, as I understand here, is that if I'm doing the work of a Shudra or if I'm doing service, I have to be completely from the service dharma I have to act, not from a Brahmin dharma to service. And if I have to be a Kshatriya, then I have to get into the spirit of the Kshatriya and act from there.
Very nice, very beautiful.
So, in our lives, we have to follow the dharma of each of the varnas in that respective activity. That is also moving into the rhythm of the thing, no?
Right.
Not holding on to our tendencies and
Right.
imposing that on every other activity, but flow into each with its own spirit.
Right. It's exactly that what Anuradha described. The dharma of each of varnas has to be followed on their own ground. Not as a Brahmin I will do the Shudra's work, because I may not succeed. So I need skillfulness of Shudra. I have to develop that skillfulness. It won't work. So Brahmins actually are seen as most developed, so to say, state of consciousness from which actually you can come back and should be able to come back, because you actually went through all of those stages. That's why you could come to the sense of knowledge. So you can come back, but it means that you should not stay Brahmin. You have to really be that skillful worker or that powerful Kshatriya, which is quite a task. In the Gita, for example, yes?
The 4 powers that you mentioned, Mahakalali, Mahalakshmi,
Maheshwari first.
and how do they correspond to Satchit, Ananda and Vijnana?
Maheshwari is about knowledge. Yes? Mahakali is about power. Mahalakshmi is about delight. And Mahasaraswati about skillfulness in works. So it's like Chit, Tapas, Ananda and Vijnana. Yes? So Chit Tapas is consciousness of this Maheshwari and Mahakali. Or we can say that because of that Maheshwari may represent even Sat, Chit, Ananda and Vijnana. Yes? So basically that's how they correspond. The qualities of the soul, 12 qualities, which maybe I do not know Surya was presenting to you or not, the 12 dharmas. No, he was not. I sent him the file of the... Yeah, he mentioned. These are the qualities which are coming from these 4 aspects of the mother. Sincerity and peace are the central qualities of the Maheshwari Shakti. And so on. The Mahalakshmi will be the aspiration, the Mahakali courage, Mahasaraswati goodness and generosity and equality. So in a way it's a very interesting redistribution of the soul's qualities according to the 4 powers. And these 4 powers are 4 varnas, which we have to all embody here. They are not the powers outside in nature, they are the qualities of the inner being. So when Sri Krishna in the Gita says that, and in his view karma yoga is a great secret, because it is exactly that, how to be in this life, yes? How to stay conscious in their activity. He presents the karma yoga in 3 steps. The first step is you renounce the fruit of action. You are not doing anything for any fruit, for any particular way. You are just doing it because it is kartavyam karma. The action is to be done. That's why you are doing it. But not because you want something to be done. This first liberation leads you to the second liberation, which is more difficult, liberation from the mode of action. So you can change actions. And that is varnic freedom. You can come from one action to another, shift from one action to another, and you must do it freely, be able to do it. You cannot be stuck to one particular way of acting. That preference is egoistic preference. Preference of action, preference of being. You have to be able to shift from one action to another, which is not interesting for you, which is not preferable for you, for your mode, because you have to enlarge your capacity of the soul. Because within your soul you have all the potentials and all the possibilities. So if you cut it off this time and say that I prefer that, that means you are not exercising this major function, major purpose of your life, to increase the capacity of your being. So I was saying that the Agni, this element, this Godhead, is the major Godhead in the Veda. And what is interesting about it, we look at it, and I looked at it for many years as if Agni was the first God and all the rest are coming afterwards. And we all presume that it is like this. Agni is there kindled, and because it is kindled we can discover other gods. But it is not the case in the Veda. Agni was discovered by rishis. Somebody asked the mother, did rishis know about our divine origin? Did they know that the divine is involved? And she says, no, they didn't know. They discovered it. They discovered the Agni there. And it is interesting, I have confirmation in many hymns now how rishis speak about Agni. So the secret will in nature was discovered. It is hidden. The immortal among mortals is hidden. For example, one rishi, Kumara Atreya, says, I came to you, O Agni, because I was instructed by Indra how to find you. It is Indra, the divine mind, who instructs the rishi to find the hidden secret will in nature. I have even quotes here written down. Indro vidvan anuhitva cha chaksha. Indra saw you. He is the knowledgeable one. Tenaham agne anushishta agam. By him instructed, I came to you. I discovered you. And then he continues in a very interesting way. Dadano asma amritam viprikvat. Me who gives to you my immortality in all the details of my being. Kim mam anindra krinavan anuktach. What could they do to me, those who do not have Indra, those who do not speak the word? Now this is the Vedic imagery again. Those who are anindra and those who are anukta, who have the power of the soul, the word, and those who do not have the power of the mind, the divine power. What can they do to me now when I discovered you here? The secret will in the nature. Yes. It is 5-8. Rigveda 5-8. Kumara Atreya. It's a beautiful hymn. It starts with an amazing vision of Kumaram mata yuvatih samubdham guha vibharti nadadati pitre. The mother, the young mother, keeps the child, the prince, within her womb. Secretly she carries him and does not deliver, does not give him to his father. Kam etam tvam yuvate kumaram, kam etam tuvam yuvate kumaram, peshi bibharshi mahishi jajana. This is so beautiful. Purvirhi garbhach sharadova vardha apashyam jatam yadasuta mata. Who is this prince whom you carry within yourself, O young maiden? You are pressing him, or you are holding him close to yourself, carrying him, and when you are growing great, you deliver him. Now, who is this mother? Mother is this nature who holds tight the soul involved within her and does not deliver too soon to his father, because that soul is to grow. And not only the soul is to grow, but she is to grow with his presence. So that soul, by growing within her, makes her great. And when she is great, she delivers him finally. Apashyam jatam yadasuta mata. I saw the one born whom mother has delivered. So the nature, our physical, vital and mental nature is ready, it's great and enough by his presence within her to let this hidden being within us, immortal among mortals, to come to the front and to be delivered. And that's another hymn. Rishi says, Abodhi Agnih Samidha Jananam. Awoke or awakened is the Agni by the kindlings of those who are born in the physical body. Awakened is the soul by those who are embodied in the physical body. 5:1:1. Pratidhenum ivayatim ushasam. And as a calf moves towards the cow, feeding cow, to the mother, he moved towards the dawn. He awakened and moved towards the dawn as calf moves towards the Pratidhenum iva ayatim ushasam Yahvaiva pravayamujjihana prabhanavah sisrate nakam acha. And we, full of force, as if young, moved up, stood up, as beams of light straight onto the heaven. Abodhi hota yajathaya devan. Awakened is the fire. Awakened is the summoner of the gods. To sacrifice here the gods. Yajathaya devan. Urdhvo agnih sumanav pratarasthat. Stood up straight the fire in the morning with beautiful mind, Sumanah. Samidhasya rushadadarshi pajo. His kindled stuff is seen as shining. Mahan devas tamaso niramochi. The great Godhead was delivered or was released out of the darkness. These are the images of the Veda. The great Godhead had to be discovered and then released out of the darkness. I will come to this. Yes. Now, what I can say about the Ashvins, if I don't mention Agni, if I don't mention Surya, Ushas, I can't say much about Ashvins. Of course, I can say that Ashvins are considered to be the physicians who are healing our wounds, and yes, but it won't do the justice because we do not know where they are coming from, where they belong, what they really represent. So if we don't see this fire growing, bringing all the devatas into the manifestation, how can Ashvins come? They also come through the fire. So the Ashvins, they are considered to be the physicians, yeah? Especially in the later literature and Ayurveda, it is Ashvins who, reveal the secret of the ayus, of the power of life to Indra. And Indra again here is the Godhead who brings this knowledge to man. Somehow all the knowledge comes through Indra. Knowledge about the fire, knowledge about the ayus, about the life force. They are also kind of magicians. They have easily invoked Ashvins. Ashvins are those riders on the horse. Yeah? They are riding the three-wheeler, the chariot which is three-wheeler. They save men from all kind of troubles, and they heal all the wounds, very easily invoked, ready to help, assist man in his endeavor to ascend in his journey. They are born from Surya. Surya. Their mother is Surya or Saranyu, and there is a very strange myth in the Rig Veda where Saranyu is married to Vivasvat. Vivasvat, the son, who is involved, the involved Godhead, the involved supermind, marries Saranyu. Saranyu is the Surya, the daughter of the sun. And before she marries him, she creates, or the gods create for her the image, the secondary image, a copy, with which Vivasvat is married, and she escapes the marriage. So as to say, she creates the copy of herself, or the gods create the copy of her. And it is interesting, the Ashvins are born to her before she made the copy. It may tell you something about the origins of Ashvins. They are coming originally from the sun. Yes? They are the sun gods. And there are two of them, yes? Ashvins are always two. One represents the knowledge, other represents the power of the supramental action. And then they can heal any wounds in the life force, or also in the mind, or in the physical. You know that in the Indian tradition they come before the dawn. Yes. In the later tradition, they are also understood as Pingala and Ida. Ida and Pingala nadis, and Indra represents Sushumna. It's quite interesting. Indra with two ashwins, as if two hands. And in that sense also it is interesting to think that they kind of represents the life force of breathing in and breathing out of hot and cold breath, so to say. Heating and cooling down the body, so to say. The breathing in and breathing out as the life force, represented by these two godheads. But it is in the later interpretation, of course, which was trying to make sense to what they represent in the Veda. In the Veda there is something very different. So it is these two ashwins who who bring in the chariot Surya or Saranyu for marriage. That's why ashwins have to be there for marriage always, when the bride is there to be brought to the husband. They are the messengers.
The bhajans talk about how they heal. Is that kind of there in the hymns? What is the mechanism with which they heal the healing?
There is unfortunately no mechanisms, there is no instruction how they do it. But there are mentionings of different kind. I prepared 2 hymns to go through if you want to see what ashwins do. But the Rig Veda is a text which is not rational in a sense, which explains how things happen. It happens and we know about it already post factum. So to say, we have to see what they did, and for the Rishi it is more important not to describe how they do it or what, but to invoke them and to bring them into his consciousness. Once they are there, they will do the job.
There is one interesting element that you brought out as we discussed it so previously, that will bring that special element of bliss, almost that is added to any other experience.
Right.
Any other one that comes, they give a little delight, and that will be actually the reason.
Yes, this is also very essential point, that ashwins are why they are wanted so much by man, by everyone, because they are bringing the bliss. They are drinkers of the wine, and they are wine, soma wine, that bliss, amritam, and they are also the finders of the wine and the bringers of the wine. So they are invoked to drink the wine, and they are, by drinking the wine, they bring more soma to man. So to say, they are the blissful lords, the lords of bliss, who manifest by their blissful touch. They heal all the wounds. Most probably there is something about it, about the healing, that it is only by blissful touch that you can heal the wounds, and not by some kind of rigorous discipline or something. There has to be an element of bliss and delight which will heal the wound, because wound is nothing but the distortion of bliss. So when bliss arrives, so it just heals it. So I think we are coming to the end. Yes,
What
yes.
are the conditions in which ashwins are invoked? Is there some kind of either pattern or something in which one sees, or are there necessary godheads that have to be there when ashwins are invoked?
Yes, they are invoked before the dawn. I mean, the dawn is the first coming, but they are coming before the dawn. These astronomically, there are 2 stars, I think, somewhere before the dawn. You can see those stars, and they are associated with ashwins.
In the psychological context, the dawn is
The dawn is something, yes. The dawn is a mysterious thing. We think about the dawn as a psychological, so to say, illumination. Yeah? But it seems that it is illumination in the physical. It is psychological, of course. It is coming from the depth of our being, but it reaches out to the physical. And that's what dawn represents. It is not only within that we have a dawn. It is the dawn which is reaching to the material manifestation. The dawn is, in itself is a big topic, and we can look into it. There are beautiful hymns to the dawn. She is the mother of all the gods. She is that Aditi who comes down to us. She is the goddess who brings Surya with her, the divine manifestation, the supreme manifestation, the supramental manifestation. It is she whom he follows, as the young man follows the young woman. As Kutsan Girasa, the most beautiful hymn to the dawn and the sun. 115. He says about the sun, Chitram Devanam Udagada Nikam. The consciousness of the gods has arisen. Chakshur Mitrasya Varunasya Agnech. The sight of Mitra, of the divine consciousness, of Varuna, of the divine being, and of Agni. Apradyava Prithivi Antariksham. He filled the heaven and earth and Antariksha, Surya Atma, the sun, the self, Jagatastasthushaschya, of everything what moves here and moves not. He is the self. Suryo devim ushasam rochamanam maryo nayosham abhi eti paschat. And he, the sun, follows the shining maiden, the dawn, as the young man follows the woman, the maiden, follows her, behind her, paschat. Yatra naro devayanto yugani. There where the heroic souls of man, seeking the divine manifestation in time, vitanvate pratibhadraya bhadram, spread the blissful for the blissful. Just look at this beautiful image. The sun, the supreme, the self, follows her, the shining maiden, as the man seeking all his desires to be realized in his partner, in his spouse. There, where the heroic souls of men are already engaged, seeking the divine manifestation in time, or even we can say divayantach, divinizing yugani, divinizing the yugas. Vitanvate, spreading pratibhadraya bhadram, the blissful for the blissful. This is the mysterious language of the Veda, which, if you read longer these hymns, this is an absolutely marvelous poetry as such. It's just a poetry, it's not a religious literature. If you read it, the images are coming, and the images are creative. They change your perception of yourself and the world. They do something to you, to your consciousness. I think the same happens when you read Savitri. But these images do not leave you afterwards, they stay. And when you read even for a few times the verse or the whole hymn, I'm not daring to read the whole hymn even, only a few verses from here and there. Even when I finish the reading, I go on the motorbike, and these rhythms, they come back, and they hammer within you. They demand your attention. And even if you forget about them, they are still there at the background. Yatra naro devayanto yugani vitanvate pratibhadraya bhadram. And this rhythm of Trishtubh will hum and hum. Yatra naro devayanto yugani vitanvate pratibhadraya bhadram. You hear the rhythm. So much on the healing that healing, as I started my introduction to the healing, that healing is the ultimate state of immortality, and all the other stages in between are the stages of our being healed. We are slowly and gradually being healed to be healed at the end. We are all sick, so to say, and have to be healed. Sick in the sense that we are mortals. We cannot sustain the spirit in this frame, and we have to heal this outer frame and to make it suitable for the spirit to carry it and not to leave every time when we are not capable to manage, not able to manage with it anymore. So this is the concept of healing in the Veda, which is very different from the healing in general. So we stop here for now, and we will have tea and